Hello, landscaping. I am making this wonderful video for you from the comfort of my dining room for all of those people that want to see a beautiful PowerPoint read off by Miss Power, yours truly. Um, Otherwise, you also have the option to view this PowerPoint on your own and read through it at your own pace. So I'll just be going through the elements of landscape design today with you. So first off, things we need to know. These are the components and the characteristics of a landscape that add the harmony, visual appeal, and functionality to that landscape. So a lot of what we've done so far in landscaping and in drawing has just been like free range. You can do whatever you want, put a plant wherever you want, and this PowerPoint's really going to buckle down into like why we should put certain plants where we do and why we should maybe not put others where we do. Just kind of like the do's and don'ts of design. So hopefully you've all heard the saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But this landscaping design brings up a new point that ugly is universal. So if we think like something's ugly, a lot of people are going to actually think that way. We all might have different preferences, but poorly designed landscapes are generally recognized by everyone out there. So very important to understand and to utilize those tools that we're going to share in this PowerPoint later on so that you can best capitalize off of your design so that everyone thinks it's really good looking. So it is easy to spot poor designs because people have come to expect certain functions and services from every design landscape. So if every designer of a landscape is following these same rules, same rituals, everyone has the same expectations of what those are going to look like from now and in the future. Let's see, the next slide. Elements of design are the considerations that must be taken into account for a design before any other work can begin. So like we said in class, one of our last days, it was one of the processes that we went over. We can't start the landscape before that design is finalized. There might be some small tweaks and adjustments based off like what's available or things that change as it starts to come together, but it'd be kind of silly of us to just throw some plants out and then come up with a design later, I think. So if one of the elements is misused or overlooked in the landscape, the whole thing will be generally viewed as a failure because it won't have the components that we're going to talk about in the next couple slides. Elements of design are common to any and all forms of art. While these may be used in application to landscape design, they also apply to building designs, fashion, interior decorating, and lots of other capabilities. All right, elements of design. This gets to the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about today. So these are the 6 elements that we are going to discuss throughout this PowerPoint and that you will be expected to try and create within your designs. So the first one is going to be line. And that is the question of how is the eye guided when you're looking at a landscape, like what do I want to look at, right? Form, what shapes are found? So is it all rectangular, all circles? Do we have a little variance in all that? Space is the next one. Does the design seem three-dimensional, or is it like 2D and it's just like a picture on the wall? I guess I don't have any pictures behind me, but imagine something like that. If you're looking at a design, that's something I could put on the wall right behind me. Does that design pull you in and catch your eye? Do you want to go look at it, or do you want to take that picture and post it on Instagram because it looks pretty cool? Yeah, we hope so. Color. How is consistency and variety created through color? And what mood does it create? Do I look at this design and think, ooh, that's a scary haunted house? Or do I look at that design and be like, I want that in my backyard? Heck yeah. Lately, we've been going on our walks at home, kind of because there's nothing else to do. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about during our walks is what kinds of features and benefits houses have that makes us want to like look at them more or have that in our own backyard. The next one is going to be texture. So how do the visual surfaces of the design components create a functional landscape? How does everything work together? So you don't want too much of the same thing because that gets pretty boring and not something we want to look at all the time. Texture allows it to have like pops of different textures, obviously, different shapes, sizes, all of that stuff. Value is the last one. That's going to be how is contrast used to support the intent of the design. So you don't want, again, like I just said, the same colors over and over again. You want to have a variable of different things going on in your landscape. A couple other things that you might want to consider, but they're not, I guess they're not an element themselves because they are part of those other elements that we talked about. These are going to be patterned. So this is the combination of line, form, color, texture, and space. All of those elements that we just discussed real quick are considered to be part of pattern. Size is the other one, and that's the combination of line, form, and space. So, yeah, I think that's good. I'm going to take a quick pause break to get a drink of water because my voice is getting a little dry. Be right back. All right, and I'm back. Sorry, kids, this is the first time that I've used this software, so it's a little new to me. And I hope it works out on your end too. I guess we'll find out though, right? All right, back into some more detailed notes. We're going to start with line. Remember, line was one of our 6 elements of design that we talked about. Line's the element that guides the viewer's eyes through a design and adds visual structure to the design. This means that line tells your eyes where to look. So if you see in the visual there, when I look at that picture, I guess I don't want to look necessarily at the house. I look at that landscape and I look specifically, I wish I could point. Do I have a little thing? Not really. I look kind of right in this area where these lines are created. So a poor design is going to create visual confusion. We're going to take it for granted that our eyes will go to one spot when we look at the design. So we want to see all these different lines, you know, how there's not just one, there's multiple going throughout that design. A good design is going to cause your eyes to focus on a specific spot or spots the moment that you glance at it. So you won't have to look at the design to decide that your eyes like it. It's going to make you know like that structure really works out for your brain and your brain really likes it. All right, next. Line tells your eyes where the design begins and ends. A poor design is going to seem blurry. It'll be unclear where the boundaries are of each part of the design that exists. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen like on the edge of lawns where they'll do like a flower bed or something. It's like a black trim that goes along it where it has like a little like bead at the top and then it comes down. You stick that in the ground so that when you're mowing you can follow that bead along the way. That's something that helps create line within your landscapes or your homes where you live. A strong design will have clear boundaries that separate that might be a typo. I think it's supposed to say unify different components of the landscape. Landscapes are like cartoon characters. So think of Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, right? They have really clear, distinct lines that separate the edges of their body from the space around them. So when I put something up on the screen, like a Mickey Mouse character, you're going to be able to see my hand right behind it as soon as that body ends, right? Landscape should be the same. It shouldn't, again, go back to that poor design is going to seem blurry. We shouldn't have those blurred lines going on. Now I'm going to have that song stuck in my head all day. Line can be created by many different components of the landscape, and this could include, first off, vegetation. Contrasting colors or types of vegetation can create specific borders because of this contrast. Vegetation, for those of you that don't know, is going to be our actual plants in the landscape. It's not going to be any hard elements, anything like that. So it has an example that dark hedges on light grass automatically create a line that your eye can follow. You can kind of see that along in that picture. It's really small, I'm sorry about that, but you can see where like there's a clean dirt line across that whole pathway. Natural elements is the next one. A flowing river will give your eye a natural line to follow. A ridge of a hill or a distant skyline guides your eye through the landscape as if it's well designed. So that kind of goes back to we want our designs to be three-dimensional. Human elements. A meandering path like a brick wall or even a sidewalk or street add lines that can complement or enhance your designs. All right, I think this is our last one about line, but we are powering through, folks. Line is used effectively when it is used to draw the viewer's eyes to points of interest in the landscape, aka the focal point. So it's what you're looking at in that landscape. Emphasize the structural lines that give shape to the landscape, and it also highlights or accentuates lines in nature that may already exist. So sometimes we don't have to create these lines necessarily, they're already there for us, which is super awesome. For example, if a landscape is designed around a historical statue or monument, I'm sure all of you guys have seen those in your parks and things like that, the lines in that landscape should effortlessly guide the viewer's eyes to that structure. Lines may also separate the edge of the landscape from the space around the landscape, or separate different parts of the landscape from each other. So, it's okay to have more than one, I guess, place to look at in a landscape. If I think about my backyard, if I turn around one way, I could see one thing. If I turn around the other way, it could be completely different. As long as there's some kind of like uniformity between it, I think that's perfectly okay to have a couple different focal points to go towards. Lines can also be used to make already existing lines bolder. So you could see in that picture below where they put a sidewalk there, that could have been covered, like, could have been grass before or something like that. And that by putting that like cream colored sidewalk in there, it really made those purple flowers pop, right? Because they're not against so much green. All right, last bullet point on line. We got it, folks. For example, if a river exists on a line, plantings along the edge of the river add additional emphasis to make that line have more impact. So you're really going to notice. I don't know if you've ever been to a river, but as you're looking down it, it's going to come like in and out and not be a clean line all the way. Adding those plants along that landscape, if you're looking up the whole river, you'll see some clearer lines that will kind of trick your eye into seeing what you think you want to see. Okay, I'm looking at my timer at the top here, and it says I have 15 minutes, so I think I better do this in 2 parts. Stay tuned for part 2.